Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Glad to see you again. Welcome to the spring webinar series of Macmillan Education. And we're going to focus on growth mindset, the key to unlocking potential this time for you guys. So happy to see you back, or maybe this is the first session you joined like this week. But stay tuned, we will still have one more session tomorrow. So let me know in the chat where you're watching this session from. I am Super from Macmillan Education, and great to see you. Hi, Andrew. Hi, Malin. Good afternoon. Watching from Thailand, Bangkok. Hi, David. Hi, Gregory. And hi everyone from Philippines, from Indonesia. Thank you very much for coming today, and hopefully we're going to have a great session together again for this trilogy sessions. And before we kick off the session, I would like to give you a little bit background information about what we're doing right now and what's coming up this week. Okay, so we're running this spring webinar series in this week, and we have already finished one session on Tuesday, which we talked about how to cultivate a growth mindset in the classroom for your students. And if you're interested, you'll be able to watch the recording after. And this is the second session, and we are going to focus on how to embrace failure and reap the benefits from mistakes, which means how we're going to help our students to, correct their errors and deal with their mistakes happened during their learning and take that as an opportunity to learn and grow. It is also part of a growth mindset, like a building process. So hopefully in today's session, we are going to dig deeper about how to cultivate a growth mindset and how we can learn and grow from making mistakes or errors. And if you're interested in more like teacher training resources and webinars, you're very welcome to follow us on Facebook or WeChat, and you're able to contact us if you're interested in our products, books, course books. Yeah, you can contact us with the following email address for China and for the rest of Asia. And before I introduce you to the speakers and to today's session, I would like to give you a little bit information about the housekeeping stuff. Of course, you're going to have a certificate after attending the sessions, and it will come with an email together with the recording if you want to watch again. And if you attended the Tuesday session, wait a bit because that email hasn't come through yet. So you're going to receive them in a few days. Be patient and do check the spam folder if necessary. And you will be able to find the certificate and download it from that thank you email. Okay. And also, I would like to highlight a little bit a very amazing program we're working on this year, which is called Change Makers. If you're interested in topics like sustainable development, global citizenship, or advancing learning and futures, you will find this initiative very, very interesting and very, very useful for your students and yourself. It is a global initiative which we would like to invite teachers like you and your students to join and share your visions for the future. No matter what kind of projects you did or any artworks or piece of posters you created, which is relevant to topics like sustainable development goals, global citizenship, you are able to share with us in this Changemaker program. And you will find a lot of students and teachers have already shared their work on our website. Yeah, so if you're interested, if you're willing to share your work, yeah, I really would want to invite you to visit us on this website, www.changemakersword.live. You can also scan this QR code to share your students' work. Yeah, it is a very friendly program. We would like to engage as many learners as possible all around the world. So please have a look at this website and feel free to share your work. Okay, and now let's come back to the webinar. And as I mentioned, we will have a special session tomorrow following up as the last part of this webinar series. We're going to have our ELT time special focusing on error corrections in writing. So we are going to follow up with the error correction topic from today's topic and move on to more specific areas in writing. So come back at the same time tomorrow afternoon and we will see you there. Now, let me introduce you to the speakers for today. Hello, Del. Hello, Blue. Are you there? Hi. Hi, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Super.
Hello, Blue.
Hey, Del.
So Blue and Del are going to be our speakers for today's session. So I'm going to give this stage back to them, and I will be back at the end with the Q&A. And also feel free to ask questions in the chat box or using the Q&A button. And we will see you. I will see you in 40 minutes. So the stage is yours, Del and Blue. See you in a bit. Have a great session.
Thank you, Super. Okay, just let me grab my PowerPoint. Here we go, and share my screen. 1 second. Where's the, there we go. All right, so you can all see by now. All right, great. Yeah, welcome everybody. It's really good to be with you today. Can I just check you can see my screen? I got a message. Blue, can you see it okay?
Yes, clear on my end.
Thank you very much. Yeah, hello everybody and welcome to today's session. We're going to be looking at mistakes, errors, and how we go about correcting those mistakes and errors. One thing I just want to point out to start with is that word failure. Failure is kind of a negative word, right? And I don't want to think of mistakes as being failures, and hopefully that will come through with today's session. I think failure is probably not the right word. We're looking more at opportunities of how we can use mistakes to make learning better. So as we go through, if you've got any questions, don't forget you can put them into the chat or into the Q&A, and we'll have a look at those at the end as well. All right, I want to get started, Blue, by having a looking at the difference between an error and a mistake and what we call a slip is. So I always like to do these closed texts. So we'll read this together, and I'll have a look in the chat and see if you can come up with any of the gaps. So the first one, errors. So, excuse me. Errors are caused by students. What's the N? Success comes with failure. I love that idea. Yeah. By not, there you go. By not knowing the L. What's the L? Thank you, Lean Wen. Yes. By not knowing the language, or do not have the effective communication strategy. Excuse me, I've got a little bit of a frog in my throat today, so if I do jump out, please forgive me. A mistake is made when a student says something incorrect, yes, or incorrectly, and right away he or she corrects it. Yes, okay. And then we've got the last one, which is obviously slips. Slips are caused by what? What causes a slip? Something to do with T. You might be at the end of the day, you might be making slips when you're speaking English. It's been a long, long day. It can be caused by tiredness. Ooh. Thank you, Huang. Yes. tiredness, inattention, or just having too much to think about at the time. So maybe overwhelmed by the language. So there's a difference. So an error is where we actually don't know what the answer might be. A mistake, or what the correct form or the correct sentence or utterance might be. A mistake is when we do know, but we still get it wrong sometimes. But we can correct ourselves. And a slip is when we actually do know, we just make these mistakes. So which ones do we, as primary English speakers, often commit? Which ones do we often commit as teachers? Blue, do you ever commit any of these?
Of course, I would have to go with the third one there, slips.
Yeah, and I would even go with what Jay has said, like sometimes mistakes as well. It can be, English is such a vast language, isn't it?
Yeah.
Particularly with vocabulary. We often use vocabulary in the wrong context, or it could even be an error. We just don't know what the vocabulary is. So it could even be 1, 2, and 3. But certainly
And
3
even
is the most.
even mistakes that we make naturally as native speakers. For example, a number of English people will omit using verb 3, the participle, and use verb 2 instead.
Yeah,
You know,
it happens a lot, doesn't it? Yeah, and it's still understood. Yeah, often, particularly, I mean, when making errors, mistakes, it's all about context, isn't it? And whether you agree that if the communication is 100%, then the error or the mistake is not really an issue. So that's another debate, of course, which I think we could go into in more depth. And another webinar, we talk for hours about that for sure. And can you find a mistake or a slip in the text? You've probably seen it. Anybody? I think Blue's going to chuck a load of these into his part. There's a mistake or a slip. There you go. This is just to check that you're paying attention. Thank you. And there's my animation to show that I haven't just found that now. So yeah. Okay, now, who are you? Are you number 1? You can have a look at this, Blue, and tell me. Are you number 2? Or are you number 3? Or are you 1, 2, or 3, or 2 and 3, or 1 and 2, or 1 and 3? Lots of 2s, which is great. I really like that, yeah. Sometimes I'm number 3, particularly if it's a young learner class and they're trying really hard, and the communication is good, but you know, it's expected that we are there to correct. I think whenever possible, we have to see mistakes and slips and errors as an inevitable part of learning, right? With anything that we do is going to have an element of making mistakes. It's part of learning. And as soon as we can tell students that at an early age and make them understand that, it's give them more confidence to be able to use the language and practice and not be afraid of making mistakes. There's research to suggest, however, that correcting errors has no impact on their second language acquisition. But I think in EFL and ELT, it's not actually acquisition, it's more EFL, it's more teaching and learning. So there's a difference there. And I think when it comes to a classroom context, where they're there specifically to learn a second language and then go outside of the classroom into their first language, then I think then error correction is needed. It's expected by the students, expected by the parents. So I think that's another case for it. So anyway, we're here today to give you some ideas and techniques, some strategies into how to correct error. So I'm going to show you a tool that most of us have, hopefully, and this is to use gestures. All right, so using your hands and your voice to correct errors. I've used these throughout my career of teaching. I was taught how to do this on my CELTA course back in 1996. Is that right? Yeah, and I've been using them ever since. I find them really useful because you can use them immediately and they're very effective. So I'm going to give you a number of sentences. These are spoken sentences. that I've noted down, all right? They're not written, they're spoken. I'm correcting spoken errors. And I'd like you to have a think about how you could correct these errors with your hands, all right? I'll give you 30 seconds just to think, all right? I'm going to be quiet and let you think for 30 seconds, and then you'll see if you've got the same as me, all right? All right, so as I said, these are spoken errors, and what I'm doing is I'm correcting these errors at the end of a fluency activity. I'm not correcting them immediately, or you could use them for immediate correction, of course, but I like to use, particularly as a fluency activity, I'm not going to correct them immediately. I'm going to wait till the end of the activity. A very non-threatening way to correct. So the first one, I go there yesterday. So the first thing I'm going to do with this is I'm going to repeat the sentence, and I'm going to stress, using my voice, the incorrect word, okay? So I'm going to say, I go there yesterday. I go there yesterday. All right, I'm going to highlight where the mistake is. And now I'm going to use gestures to show how to correct the mistake. So we know the mistake is in the past simple. So I'm going to point to the past. So I've got my thumbs. I go there yesterday. I go there yesterday. I point to the past. The students understand that pointing behind me is the past, and they hopefully will then correct themselves. Okay, so they'll then say, oh, I go is wrong. What should it be? Go, went. I went there yesterday, and therefore correct their error. So very simple, pointing to the past, past tense. Similarly, I go there tomorrow. Again, repeat the sentence with stress on the incorrect word. I go there tomorrow. So if I pointed to the past, what am I going to do to show that it's a future? I'm going to point at blue. Yeah, I'm going to say 2 fingers pointing forwards in front of the chest. I go there tomorrow. I go there, and keep repeating that. And then I will get, hopefully I will go there tomorrow. I am going there tomorrow. And then we can discuss even the form of I am going to and I will go, and we can have an old debate about that. All right, so 2 very simple techniques for the tenses, or for 2 main tenses. Then we come to I am went there yesterday. Now, what's wrong here? Well, we would repeat the stress on the incorrect word. What's the incorrect word? In this sense, am is the incorrect word. I am went there yesterday. So what I would do with this is repeating the word I am went there yesterday. I would use my hand. I am went there yesterday. I am went there yesterday. I am went there yesterday. And then I would fall back my finger. I went there yesterday. I went there yesterday. Okay, so by folding back my finger, taking away the am, I can clearly show the students that this word shouldn't be there. We can omit this word and just continue with the rest of the sentence. Okay, very simple. I hope you can see my hand okay, right? Yeah, okay, you can. Yeah, I am went there yesterday. No am, put that down, and then show the students the correct sentence. Very simple to show that a word shouldn't be there. The next one, I went there yesterday. Oh, sorry, I went yesterday there. It's interesting actually when you're reading mistakes, how your mind just wants to correct them anyway. So anyway, we'll keep going. I went yesterday there. So with this one, there's not really an incorrect word. It's just that the words are in the wrong order, right? So with this one, we would just use rising intonation. So I went yesterday there. I went yesterday there. So we just rise the intonation to show there's a mistake somewhere within that sentence. All right, but then how do we highlight? How do we show them that there's a mistake with the word order? So again, I went yesterday there. I went yesterday there. And at this time, we can just simply do a switching motion. I went yesterday there. We can switch them over and indicate that these two words need to switch. Now, if you've got flexible fingers, you can actually twist them. And this works better in a classroom. And they can see that the words need to be swapped over. My fingers are not that flexible and they're quite sausagey like King Charles's fingers. But you can easily, simply just show that twisting motion. I went there yesterday. Last one, I think it's the last one. He liked going there. Now, there are two mistakes in this one, or there could be possibly two mistakes that you could highlight. And it depends on the context that you're teaching. You would know from what they're saying, what they were trying to say, possibly. But it might not be the case, particularly with a sentence like this. So you repeat the sentence on the incorrect word. He liked going there. Okay, he liked going there. Actually, sorry, it's the next one where there's two potential differences. The difference with this is if it's it could be a grammatical mistake, it could be a pronunciation mistake. This is where we need to know in order to really correct it. But in the spoken sense, there should be, it's third person singular, so we know there's a mistake. Now, the way to do this is to simply show that there's an S. Okay. Now, if you don't want to draw in your hand, then that's fine. Have an S on the wall in your classroom and point to it. I teach mainly in Thailand, and in Thailand they have a problem saying the third person singular. It's a problem in every lesson. You will hear this, or with plurals, you will hear this problem. You will hear this challenge. You're going to have it all the time. So have an S in your classroom, and when you hear it, just point to the S on the wall and help them correct themselves. That stops you from having to write an S on your hand every time you go in to teach. This is where there could be two potential errors. He likes go there. He likes go there. So again, repeat the mistake with a he likes go there. He likes go there. And this time, with your hand, you can use a wagging motion. So, excuse me, I've just nearly knocked over computer. He likes go there. He likes, and I'm wagging, go there. I'm wagging to show that there's a word missing. Okay, he likes to go there. Okay, and now I've corrected the error. Now, if I'm doing this with another form of he likes going there, then what I can do is simply highlight the word go, put my palms together and make it longer. Sorry, let me go up. So go, make it longer, going, and correct the students that way. Very simple, very easy to correct those errors. All right, Blue, I'm going to pass it over to you now for your strategy. All the best.
Thank you.
Cheers.
That was really informative, Dal. I learned something there.
Good.
All right, so let me stop sharing your screen and I will share mine. There we go. Okay. Dal, can you confirm that you can see that all right?
Yep, can do.
Wonderful. So yeah, again, as Dal mentioned, today's session is all about sort of embracing mistakes and taking that away, the negativity of them, and sort of seeing them as, well, just what they are. They're mistakes, they're an opportunity to grow. And honestly, it should be like that. I don't necessarily use the word celebrated, but we all make mistakes, you know, regardless of whether it's in the classroom or everyday life. So that sort of idea of, hey, we all make them, let's embrace them, let's learn from them, is very much applicable in your ESL, in your English classroom. So I believe we should all, as educators, lead by, oh dear. Okay, yeah, apologies, let me change that. Lead by example. We should all lead by example. There we go. Again, I apologize, lead by example. There we go, lead by example. Yeah, as teachers, it's a nice way to get your students on board by simply making mistake yourself. If you make mistakes in your classroom, whether it be on the board or a handout, there's so many benefits to it. Mistakes, thank you. Firstly, it's a great way to see if students are actively listening or reading in your lesson. For example, there's 158 people in this Zoom room right now. How many of you saw those mistakes in my opening slides? Were you actively reading? Okay. So again, it's a great way of making sure that you've got your students' attention immediately when you're presenting something on the screen, on the board, wherever it might be. Secondly, it's a really organic way to comprehension check your students' understanding. If you make a mistake and you kind of give them time, are they able to identify said mistake? So it's a nice way of quickly, without going through it sort of explicitly in your lesson, to see if students can identify mistakes that you've made. And hopefully, if they can, that saves you a lot of teacher time in terms of over-explaining things that might already be known. And thirdly, it builds immediate confidence. These students are thinking, hey, well played me. I managed to correct the teacher. So again, it's a nice way for them to build that sort of inner confidence within themselves. So this is an approach I take a lot when I do my workshops, actually, when I go out to schools and universities to deliver workshops, just to make sure that everybody's listening straight away. So that's an opening slide from one of my workshops a few months ago at a local university here in Ho Chi Minh City. Can anyone identify the mistakes very quickly in the chat? Go ahead, please. Yeah, Karen, make those intentional mistakes. They really do help. Thank you. You've got implementing, effective. Yeah, some very common mistakes, really, that, again, native speakers are prone to make. So what I would do, again, this is the opening slide, and this specific workshop was the 4 key skills. And for this example, I was focusing on writing, all right? So again, I change, we highlight the mistakes. And as you can see up there, there's a WW. I'll let you think about that one. WW, what does that stand for? And again, for another one, implementing, SP. Okay, so we went from implementing to the correct word, SP. What does that mean? And finally, where you can see the picture of myself, Blue Melia, there was another mistake there, presentation, which should, of course, be presenter. And there's a WF. So what do you think those 3 acronyms represent? Hung Fung, thank you. Word form, nah, well done. Yeah, word use landing, you're correct, word form. And so basically, what I'm getting at right here is, error codes, basically a marking code, where as a class, if you've got pieces of writing that need to be corrected, but not done in that sort of red pen approach by the teacher immediately, marking codes are a really efficient way of, approaching errors in writing. Now, this has been brought to my attention by a number of people. Well, aren't you giving yourself extra work to do? Because surely you're going to have to correct with all these different marking codes acronyms, give them back in order to correct and then mark again. The short answer to that is yes, but no, in the sense that you get your students on board and you make it pretty much their responsibility to do phase 1. So together you develop and create the marking code with your students, okay? That's when they will sort of peer check and share essays and pieces of writing amongst themselves. And then once that marking code has been sent back to the owner of the piece of writing and they can correct, that's when it can be handed into the teacher. Again, this takes time, but when you're looking at this, I guess, from a secondary school perspective, writing essays, it's a really nice way of getting all the students on board. They know exactly the routine. They're going to write an essay. They're going to then peer check using the codes. And then finally, they can hand it into the teacher, hopefully with less mistakes, because they've put their trust in other students, whilst, of course, bestowing that same trust in return. So it becomes a responsibility, I put there, highlighted, an ownership really sort of becomes on the shoulders of the students themselves. Again, maybe that's nothing new to you, but certainly the steps in which you do it and implement it can really make it effective in a classroom, particularly when it comes to writing. Error correction feedback model, which is probably the one where you go back through the last few decades of writing, is how we sort of approach. Students benefit from receiving feedback on their spelling, punctuation, and grammatical structure. And often that comes in the form of, using that red pen all over the piece of writing. It has its place, of course it does. But if you can kind of skip this with the step one, which I shown you earlier, it really is beneficial. But that brings us to the question of being direct or indirect when it comes to your correction. Direct would be this approach here, this old school error correction feedback model of highlighting, correcting. Indirect would be what we just showed you there, where basically the responsibility is on the students themselves. They're going to indirectly correct each other to then deliver it to the teacher after. And so make it fun. As I just said in my opening, error correction, we all make mistakes. So there's a number of ways in which we can make it fun in the classroom for primary level and secondary as well. So error correction relay, basically for this one, you're going to divide the class into 2 teams and give each team a paragraph with several errors. The first student must read the paragraph, identify an error and correct it, and then pass it on to the second person in their team. Okay, so it can be done sat down at desks. It can be done stood up if you wish, but basically give them a piece of text with plenty of mistakes. Maybe it's something you're reviewing from past lesson, or maybe it's even something you're going to look at in future lessons to see again where they stand in their understanding. And yeah, error correction relay, really effective, really fun. And again, an organic way, a fun way to approach mistakes. Secondly, writing prompts is another way to sort of make it more fun and engaging in the classroom. You're going to give students a writing prompt that includes intentional mistakes, grammatical errors, punctuation mistakes as well, and encouraging students to respond to the prompt. So they have to identify it, but then also correct the mistakes in the prompt itself as well. And finally, peer editing, old school, but resourceful and useful. Again, in your secondary school classes especially, peer editing, where students feel unified because they're helping one another, is a really effective way of making error correction more accepting and more part of just the everyday approach to their writing. And it's nothing alien, it's nothing scary, it's nothing they should be concerned about when it comes to making mistakes. I think, especially with the AI these days we have in school, especially this last year looking at ChatGPT, there's a number of shortcuts which students can make. So it's nice when you can bring it back to pen and paper, laptop, no internet included, but just the students working on each other's pieces of work. Yeah, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen there. And so, yeah, that's it really. A number of old school ideas there, but basically just making it more organic and embracing mistakes when it comes to writing.
Cheers, Blue. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Particularly with, I was just thinking when you said about ChatGPT, because it is, I mean, it's amazing. It really is an incredible tool. And it's always grammatically perfect. So I think the skill is going to be rewriting ChatGPT to make it to include mistakes that would be natural to what a learner would then make at that level. That is kind of reverse engineering the whole learning process. Kind of funny in a way.
I've seen students do that already, Dal. Try and write it as a 9th grade student. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll be able to ask ChatGPT to write it with mistakes because your teacher's going to check it. Also, anyway, that's another debate. So I've got another strategy. This is my second strategy. This is called Boos and Cheers. So again, this is similar to the first idea when I was using gestures. I've looked at sort of a number of mistakes, if you like, or errors that I've recorded hypothetically after a speaking activity. And I noticed Guy mentioned in the chat about correcting only errors of target language. I think that's, yeah, that's definitely what I would do. I wouldn't focus on errors that we weren't actually focusing. Oh, I call it, rather than, I call them focused errors, if you like. So they're errors that are made within the target language. If they're not focused errors, they don't need to be corrected. But let's assume that these are all focused errors. So what I would do is I'll give them some statements, and I want you to decide, or the students to decide, whether they are correct or incorrect. Now, if you want to take part, it is very difficult to do this online. This is very much a classroom activity. It's an energetic activity. There's lots of noise. There's lots of fun that goes with this, and lots of working together as a whole group and a collective to correct these mistakes. We decide if the sentence is correct or the statement is correct, we cheer, and if it's wrong, we all boo. All right, so here are my sentences. So I'm very excited to go on vacation next week. We would have a cheer or a boo. First one to say correctly gets a, this would be a boo? A boo? Why a boo? Yeah, it's a cheer. Oh, thank you. I think Karen and Theo were winding me up a little bit there, because I was sure it was a cheer. All right, thank you. Yeah, so we would have a big cheer. Imagine you're in the classroom, you've got this on the board, you point to it, or you highlight it, you write it up, however you're going to put it up there, or you get a student to come up and read it to the class nice and loud. I'm very excited to go on vacation next week, and everyone was cheer, everyone was, yes, that's a good sentence, and starts clapping. Now, if you're not sure, if you are a boo and you go boo, you're probably not going to be heard, because the majority of the class are cheering, right? So you're going to feel safe and comfortable within that space to boo and cheer as you would like to. Now we go through, we have all these sentences. We won't go through them all because I can't hear you boo and cheer, but you get the idea. Now, whoops, let me just go back. Now, the idea of having six, actually, I'll just mention to you, the idea of having 6 sentences that are correct and 4 that could be better. I say could be better, not incorrect, because it's likely this is a communication activity and students have probably communicated 100% correctly. So the sentences themselves are very effective, but they could be better. Grammatically, they could be better. So let's address those focused errors, those grammar errors in this way. So we've gone through the sentences, boo, cheer, boo, cheer, yay, boo, yay. We know what the sentences are, and then we highlight them. We're celebrating success. There's 6 that are correct, but there are 4 that are now incorrect. So what we do again is use the same idea. We boo and we cheer, but this time we break it down into the sentence themselves, the words within the sentence. So we cheer and boo every single word. So let's try this one now. She, boo or cheer? Yeah, it's a cheer, isn't it? She don't, boo or cheer? It's a boo. Like, yay. To, yay. Eating, boo. Spicy, yeah. Food, yeah. So we go through the sentence, booing and cheering, booing and cheering. When we hit a boo, we might underline it on the board. Get to the end, and then we correct the sentence together. So go back to the boo, and then I ask them. I might use a different technique to try and elicit from the students how to correct that mistake. Might even use the S for that one, right? It's a rather than the don't, it's a doesn't. Eating, I might use the eating. I might make it smaller. Eating, and make it smaller so that they can correct themselves and go through those sentences the same way. Yay, boo, like that. It's a very, very simple technique, very fun, very energetic. No preparation needed at all, except for you collecting those really good sentences and those could be better sentences. Short and sweet for that one, Blue. I'm going to pass it back to you.
Wonderful. Cheers, Dan. All right. Oh, here I go. Again, Dale, can you just confirm that you can see my screen all right?
Beautifully, yep.
Wonderful. So refining your speech with technology. Yes, we knew we would get to this point surely, but don't worry, ChatGTP is not included. So yeah, let's look at how technology can be a really resourceful aid when it comes to refining your speech. Okay, so let me pose a question to everybody. Issues with pronunciation. How can students practice their speaking once outside the classroom? Or let me just actually rephrase and kind of amend that question to the following. How can students practice their speaking once outside the classroom and alone? Okay, so maybe you've got students coming up to a big important speaking exam. Jay, nail on head right there, sir. Yeah. You've got a big important exam coming up. You know you've got to just refine those small mistakes that you're making. Okay, but you've got no one immediate there to sort of talk to. There's no teacher. There's no friends you can quickly talk to. It's 1 a.m. in the morning. So how can we do it alone? And that's the question I'm posing to you. Jay's got the answer. A number of people in the chat have got the answer already. But yeah, you've got your traditional methods, of course, reading out loud, in front of a mirror, making sure you're enunciating and that tongue and teeth movement is on point. And hey, maybe you're going to sing in the shower, okay? But they offer very little feedback in terms of comprehension and development. You're not really getting any immediate feedback of, are you being understood? Are you being clear? Are you enunciating and stressing in the correct places? And so, of course, utilize that technology. And the wonderful thing is, we all have this technology in our pockets these days, don't we? Phones don't look like that these days. They look, no, I've gone backwards, haven't I? That looks like a brick. They look like this, okay? And basically, we call them phones, we call them smartphones, but let's be honest, they're mini PCs in your pocket. They do everything our PC could do in 1998 plus more. So you've got that technology in your pocket ready to go. You know, you might have a tablet, you might have a PC, or hey, let's go back to 98. You might have one of these sitting at home, dust it off. Okay, I'm not sure what use it will be. So yeah, utilize this technology as much as you can, particularly if you know you're a student, you're a teen. Those mobile phones, so useful. So a number of people in the chat, I saw Jay mention it. Use app, says Joseph. Yeah, a number of people use an app, record yourself. Useful for high-level learners who are trying to finesse their pronunciation. So for example, I always tell my students, you know, they always ask that question, teacher, how can I improve my pronunciation? Well, take a piece of text from one of your course books. This one's taken from our secondary level Gateway to the World series, and a random text. Take it, and learners become their own teacher. And what I sort of tell them to do is record it and be your own judge, be your own teacher, okay? Read this piece of text, listen to the recording of you reading it, and be your own teacher of where you think you can hear your own mistakes, okay? So again, they become more aware of how they sound to others. And again, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. I'm not happy. I didn't quite stress the plural in a particular word. I forgot to omit the verb S in the third person of the auxiliary verb, whatever it might be, okay? So again, most of you said it in the chat there, but again, it's about honing it, repetition, and students can do this themselves at home. Also, we have certain individuals, Siri and Google, my best friend is Google, and we can just talk to them, okay? Smartphone assistants act as a great way to immediately get feedback on your pronunciation and whether you've been understood. Because if they can answer your question, it means you are clear in your delivery, okay? Even maybe you've got Siri at home, Google, or it could be anything, couldn't it? There's a number of them out there these days. And were you understood? Could you ask the question using different words and expand your vocabulary? So I'm going to try that now. I've got my mobile phone with me. So bear with me now, because this is technology. We've got to embrace failure, remember. If this doesn't work, but let's just check it out. So there I say different words. I could say, hey, Google, tell me some Vietnamese food. But let's take that sentence and just try to elaborate it, use fancier words, but the same question. Google, I hope this works. Here we go. Hey, Google. Embrace failure. He's there. He can hear me. All right, here we go. Google, can you tell me any popular Vietnamese cuisines that tourists would like to eat?
I found a few places near you.
Oh, thank you. So they found a list of Vietnamese cuisines, restaurants around the city. And looking at my sentence that I actually spoke, Google, can you tell me popular Vietnamese cuisines that tourists would like to eat? It's right there. It understood me. So again, if you're alone at home, encourage your students to speak to their phone and speak to Google, speak to Siri, and see if they are being strong enough with their pronunciation and delivery. Social media, okay? It's a wonderful thing if used correctly. And it's a nice way to utilize it productively. A number of your students will be on a number of different platforms, including TikTok. Now, TikTok has a number of creators who offer language learners the opportunity to practice, really, their English with interactive dialogue. Now, this is something you might have seen before. Learners can basically interact, sort of, with TikTok posters and TikTok videos, and basically reply and then post their videos. So I took the time earlier this week to create a Blue Melia Macmillan TikTok platform. Okay, I'm not on TikTok. Well, I wasn't until a few days ago, but I did create a video, and hey, there's my details. If I get a few followers, maybe I'll start utilizing it and putting a few videos up. Who knows? But there's the details if you are on TikTok. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, what I would like you to do is just talk to me. I'm going to play the video, and please, at home, in the office, wherever you are, please have a chat with Blue right here, okay? Let's see if it works. I'm going to stop sharing the screen and make sure that I've got sound ready. I have. There we go. I'm back. Okay, here we go.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Hotel Blue. How many nights will you be staying? Okay, and can I have your name, please? And your date of birth? And of course, your credit card number. And where are you traveling from today? Oh, what a beautiful part of the world. Well, here's your card. Enjoy your stay at Hotel Blue. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask.
You get the idea, everybody. Okay, so yeah, at home, if students come up to you in the classroom and say, hey, teacher, how can I, practice my pronunciation in terms of getting feedback? Social media, Siri, Google. Jay says here, having Google read a sentence to see how it sounds. Yeah, technology, embrace it. It's useful, especially when it can give you immediate feedback like that.
Great stuff, Blue. Thank you. Yeah, something I just quickly learned today, actually, linked to what you were saying about using tech, is that Google now has if you click on the browser, if you're using your phone in particular, and it can hear your voice, you can obviously search for things, using your voice, but you can actually also now like hum or sing a song, and it will find the song for you. So there's an app called Shazam, where you hold your phone up to like music that's playing, and it will tell you the song that's playing, right? But this does it for you, even from your own voice. So if you're teaching using songs in the classroom, you could get the students to like then sing the song afterwards themselves and see if they can get a match on Google. And it gives you like a percentage match. Like some of my favorite songs, I'm only getting like 35% match, but I'm still getting a match, which is really exciting, gives me a sense of progress. So you can do that in Google too. I just found out today, just as you were saying.
Yeah, and honestly, guys, I'm not the most tech savvy in that sense. So I'm sure there's a number of useful apps out there that just do exactly what I sort of illustrated there. Better,
Yeah.
maybe.
All right, so we're going to move on to like the reflection stage now. So this is mainly a couple of ideas that we're going to give you that students can do, I think, to think about that what they can do when it comes to error correction, rather than what we do as teachers, which is usually proactive. Students can actually reflect on their errors and help themselves. So the first thing I'm going to show you is a very simple error log. So this is something that any students, probably more geared towards secondary and adult students, when they're more able to reflect on their own learning, but basically creating a log of errors. So what they do, or what you can do, is give them these sheets so they can write this in their notebooks at the back of their notebooks, and they basically keep a log of any errors that they make. So here we put the date, the error, you saw the error earlier, what kind of mistake it is. Now this is very technical, so they might need some teacher feedback with this kind of error. This meta language might not be what they're used to writing, so it's up to them how they write that, what kind of mistake it is. And then the correction, so the actual correct sentence. And we can do this for a number of different errors. And the idea is that what this does is this allows learners to reflect on the common mistakes that they're making, whether it be written mistakes. They could highlight whether it's written or spoken, and really be analytical about the mistakes that they're making. What it does for our students is it creates patterns. So they form patterns of their errors that they're making. They can identify their common mistakes. They can focus their time and effort on language areas that require more attention. It also tracks progress. By keeping a record of errors and those errors that they've eliminated, they can see how they are improving. It increases awareness. Oops, just going through. It increases the awareness of error. Okay, so if they're more aware of the language that's causing them trouble, they can then maybe put some extra work into those errors, and also awareness of future text. So if they're writing, for example, they can look in their written error log before they submit their assignments. They can check and see if they've made the same errors, and if they had, then self-correct and then hand in those errors. It also allows for then, with that, self-correction, which is gives a sense of independence when it comes to their learning. They're taking control of their own learning by correcting their own mistakes, and therefore have a greater sense of ownership. And it's good for you. You get feedback of the learner's errors. You can look at your class's errors if you're teaching a class and see if you've got the similar kind of errors that are happening. And then, as a teacher, address those as a whole. Maybe it's some remedial teaching that you're going to do, or a warmer activity, and then address them as a whole like that. So these error logs, really effective way for you as a teacher and students to really take control of their learning. And one more thing before we go, we talked a lot about mistakes and errors and correction. Just don't forget this. All right, and maybe that's true for the classroom, and maybe it's also true for your personal life as well. It's a nice attitude to have, I think. And that's enough from me. So I'll pass you on to Blue again, and then I'll be hanging out for a Q&A if we've got some time. I think we will have in a few minutes.
Yeah, so I'll keep this brief, everybody. My reflection activity is a little bit more hands-on. And basically, it's just a general activity that embraces failure and makes it, again, fun. I use that word a lot. And it's the Failure Olympics, where basically you set your students challenges where they're kind of designed to fail, fail, fail before they succeed. So again, you've probably seen a number of these. It could be something practical. It could be something challenge-based. And you can tailor this according to a number of different age groups, abilities, and maybe just whatever the theme or idea or topic is you're teaching in the classroom. But the idea is that they embrace failure. For example, it could be something like this. Try to draw the following shape without lifting your pen and drawing a line twice. Again, it's something that maybe some students have seen, so you can't use it, but hopefully if it's new and fresh, they're going to make mistakes. It's going to be funny. And eventually you reveal that answer. Don't ask me what that answer is right now, because I do not know. Or it could be something, I don't know, like this. You give them some paper, you give them some card. Basically, just give them, you know, a pad of paper, or it could be anything, and go, okay, who can build the highest tower? And you know full well, whether it's with bricks, paper, cards, there's going to be lots of collapsing towers before the time expires to see who's got the highest. It incorporates teamwork, forward thinking, a little bit of initiative, but plenty and plenty of failure. So that's the Failure Olympics. And again, just there to conclude, it's an opportunity to celebrate failure, have fun, but also you can also debrief and reflect on what mistakes were made and how you can improve those mistakes later on. Okay. So whatever it might be you're doing in the classroom, this is a nice general idea to incorporate failure, having fun with it, and seeing how you can debrief, reflect, and kind of, you know, improve from one's mistakes. And that's my final reflection activity.
Great stuff, Blue. Yeah, and I think to add to that, you're saying giving them opportunities to make mistakes, and also give them, maybe even give the students opportunities to get you to make mistakes as well. So particularly if you're teaching adult classes, you could get them to teach you. I mean, you're in Vietnam, so get the students to teach you a bit of Vietnamese, and show that way that it's a common part of learning is to make mistakes. And even with secondary students, because they can have a real laugh at you, can't they, for getting you to pronounce things that are very difficult to pronounce, and having a bit, like you said, a bit of fun around making mistakes and showing that it's natural.
But I like what Jay has written in the text in the chat there.
Yeah,
if they're making no mistakes, if they're making no mistakes, well, maybe it's in their best interest to move up to a higher level. Because again, that's easily forgotten. Yeah, it's easily forgotten, Del, isn't it? That the fact that you're in that classroom at that specific level because you're going to make mistakes. And so that's something that's easily forgotten when it becomes, particularly in ESL, when you're learning a second language, and that kind of losing face by making mistakes. It should be more accepted. Hey, Super.
Hi, Blue and Del. Thank you very much for your great ideas. Yeah, and also some reflection ideas for us to think about the error correction like happening in the classroom as well. And I have got a few questions from teachers. I would like to start from the first one about the marking code Blue introduced earlier. Teacher Romer asked, is it necessary to use that code? Do you think we should use it, or probably depending on the situation? Yeah.
I think it depends on the level as well. Primary level, possibly not, but when they're getting more immersed in having to write long essays in their second language, so in this case, English, particularly maybe they're moving towards exam preparation courses before they take their TOEFL IBT, their IELTS examination. That's where I feel you'd incorporate it. So from experience, I'd be looking at upper secondary and sort of, university level, moving towards, worldwide examinations. It's not necessary. And of course, it can be tailored accordingly. So that was just an example of something that you can put together with your students. But it can be something less, something more. So the answer to that question is very much dependent on level and very much dependent on your needs in that particular class.
Yeah, I think with error codes, I mean, they're very useful, but yeah, I wouldn't use them for every single piece of writing. You use them depending on the occasion. I think also you introduce them slowly. You don't introduce, 10 codes at one time. You introduce 2 and then maybe 4, get the students used to using them. And that's the way I would implement them for sure.
Yes, I agree. And if you are interested in how to mark writing, you can come to our session tomorrow, because we're going to focus on how to correct errors in writing, how to mark your students' work for tomorrow's topic. Yes.
Yeah,
And
it's all about saving time, right? Tomorrow.
yeah,
Yeah, so
all
do
about
come
how
along.
to make your life easier and how to engage your students to correct as well. So yeah, more practical ideas will come tomorrow.
Cool.
Cool. So thank you very much, Dale and Blue, for your great session. And I look forward to see you guys tomorrow.
Cool. I
Cheers,
think
super. Cheers, Dal.
there was a question in the Q&A from
Yeah.
Astrid. But
Mhm.
Astrid, if you're still there, I'll take this offline because I know Astrid very well from Indonesia. So we can discuss this offline if you'd like to, Astrid, and I'll make sure I copy that and email you later.
Thank you very much, Dale. And
Thank
I will
you.
just make the final slides for everybody. So teachers, thank you very much for your time today and on Tuesday as well. So could you please share your feedback with us about how much you liked the sessions and how useful the ideas are to your teaching and your daily job? And yeah, we really value your feedback very much. So could you please scan this QR code or click the link in the chat box? Yeah, I think Dolores, could you please help me put the link in the chat? Yeah, feel free to share your feedback with us, and it will help us to improve our training in the future. And also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook and WeChat. We're going to post upcoming events, trainings, and also a lot of teaching tips and resources on Facebook and WeChat. If you're really interested in the course books we mentioned or any books from Macmillan Education, you can contact us with the email address here for China and for the rest of Asia. And lastly, once again, the certificate will come through in a few days after today's session, together with the link to watch the session again. So you will be able to find them in a few days. There will be an email from Macmillan Education Asia. Yeah. And lastly, don't forget to check out the amazing program called Change Makers from Macmillan Education. And I really encourage you to engage your students. Use this platform as a stage for your students to share their work or anything they did in the classroom related to global citizenship, sustainability, diversity, equity, and inclusivity. So these topics are quite broad. So just be open-minded about any work you do in the classroom, any topics would be relevant. Yeah, we welcome you to use Change Makers as the stage for your students to showcase what they have learned. Okay. So lastly, again, yeah, if you haven't registered for tomorrow's MACT special, ELT time special, yeah, please feel free to scan this QR code to register, and Blue and I will be there to discuss the error corrections in writing and how to mark more effectively. Okay, so see you tomorrow at the same time. Bye-bye.
See you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Take care.